This is part 1 of my Preheat mod update, which will cover some changes I've made, as well as a closer examination of different preheat methods. I've simplified the mod since my original version. Some of the ideas just didn't turn out as I'd planned, or in the end was not necessary. I originally made the cylinder and connecting wires removable for easy cleanup, but I found that removing the steel plunger makes the cylinder very easy to keep clean with just a wipe. Instead of a controller, I now just have a switch and temperature meter. At least for now, I don't think a controller or PID is that helpful. I also changed the power supply. It takes up less space and I like the connector it came with. It's rated for 48 volts, which is a better match for the PI heaters I installed. This will reduce the chance of burning them out. The new setup is now more simplified and less bulky than the original. The temperature meter is helpful in understanding some of the differences with preheat methods, in terms of heat loss and likely brew temperatures. Here I will show several approaches, from no preheat at all to my electronic preheat. For this demo, I'll be using the preheat cap each time I fill the chamber instead of actually pulling shots. I know this is not the same, but it should be a fair representation of the actual brew temperatures you would get. First is no preheat. If this was my brew water, you could see just how much heat gets absorbed by the chamber. I ended up with more than a 20-degree drop in temperature to around 75 degrees Celsius. I think it's possible to do better than that, but with no preheat, I think it makes it difficult to pull shots in the usual temperature range, especially if you're using pre-infusion. Next is the standard preheating using the cap. I technically already just preheated with the first example. You can see here that with just filling the cylinder once, you give yourself a much better starting point for a working temperature. Now when I fill with the brew water, I'm getting a more acceptable range of temperatures for brewing. The rate of drop is pretty fast though, so you still have to be pretty quick with your workflow. I'm guessing this is probably not the best for lighter roasts. And now for steam. This seems to be the better method of preheating. You can get the temperature pretty high and with improved stability than by filling the chamber. But I do think that workflow can potentially be impacted, and you can lose some heat in the process. The results are pretty good though. I can easily get temperatures in the low to mid 90s, and the temperature drop is fairly slow. I think there's less worry in terms of roast level when using this method. Lastly, my electronic preheat. Honestly, I'm still trying to figure it out. Before this, I didn't think there was such a thing as too much heat, but you have to take into account the thermal stability of this method. There's practically no heat loss, and I don't think you get good results pulling shots with boiling water. So you might argue that this is where the PID comes into play, but because you're heating the chamber and not the water, it's not that simple. I think in the end you'd either spend a lot of time waiting for the perfect temperature, or you'd be doing some sort of temperature surfing. I kind of resort to the latter. And in part 2, I hope to share more on that, and also demonstrate my results with different coffees and roast levels. Until then, this is all I have for today. Thanks for watching.